1st. We have one order of business, but I do want to mention something else before we get to that resolution. As I've emailed legislators and a few staff that would be involved, we have had a sort of call for another expanded budget committee meeting before Jason finalizes his proposed budget. And we are working on scheduling that time. I think about a dozen people have already responded to that when to meet request, looking for times. So I appreciate folks' willingness and interest in having another meeting and really to talk about our values and priorities, and look forward to setting a date probably by the end of tomorrow. I hope we have everybody responding to that survey. So thanks everybody for the folks who have done that. We have one resolution to consider today, and if everybody can turn to that on paper or electronically, can I get a motion to put that on the floor? Moved by Deborah, seconded by Shauna. Thank you very much. And the resolution is, let us read it, to authorize and direct the county administrator to continue furloughs for certain identified county employees during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that is what's on the floor. So I would go to Jason Molina. Would you like to introduce this and give us some background, Jason?
Thank you, Martha. So in May, when we reviewed some of the financial position of the county based on impacts of COVID, we talked about, we did some furloughing that was to extend to July 31st. And at that time, I mentioned that come early to mid-July, we would revisit the issue of furloughs and make a recommendation as to whether or not there's a reason to extend furloughs beyond that based on certain conditions and circumstances. So we then presented again in June an update, and now we'll do another update this evening. And part of this recommendation is suggesting a continuation of what was 21 furloughs is now 17, as some folks have retired or some folks we're working with to get to certain retirement milestones in the next few months. During the discussion about this over the past several weeks, I asked department heads to identify if there were positions that they felt could continue to be furloughed based on workload changes that either haven't been materialized up to date with some of the changes in COVID. After talking with all of them about their positions, the discussion I had with them is that should things change both between now and the end of the year with work, or should they change obviously with budget proposals that may require or request that the positions be recalled, we would have that conversation at that time. The last sentence of the resolution is the same as the last one, which would be to be able to recall folks as needed based on circumstances. So at this point, and you'll see, I think I sent the presentation out to the legislature. I'll go through it again tonight. That this comes also with two other recommendations of reducing expenditures. The deficit or projected potential deficit is still rather high, between 7 and 11 million for the year, based on sales tax, state aid reductions. There's a proposal, a recommendation that we would consider reducing fourth quarter payments to supporting agencies by 25% again, and then also cut out some capital programming that would not be transferred to the capital program because the projects were delayed and won't get off the ground this year. So that'll help and preserve some funding in the general fund. All in all, it's about $1 million total of a little less, almost 1.1 million of reduction in expenses this year, which will help minimize the impact of an operating deficit for this year. So that's the gist of it. I did send out some information pertaining to those titles impacted and departments impacted, as well as some brief summaries from departments based on our conversations, so that you had an understanding of the impact to the departments. These furloughs are not a position abolishments. They're furloughs, meaning there is the opportunity to be recalled or the possibility. We're also recommending that their health insurance be continued through the period that they're furloughed, and that any accruals that they have be held until either they're roll called, which they'll have access to it, or if the position is abolished at the end of the year through the budget process, they would then be paid out terminal pay based on that. So they wouldn't lose any accruals. The other thing that we've included in there is actively providing opportunities for any of these impacted employees to interview if they want to, if they qualify for any vacant positions that will be filled. So right now there are a few positions that are being filled. We'll probably have some more. If they are in similar titles or they meet the minimum qualifications of any vacant position and they're interested, they would at least get an interview with the department head, and we would talk about if there's availability for them to transition into a new role, either in their title or in a new title. We're able to do that for a variety of reasons. One, if it's the same title, it shouldn't be an issue. If it's a different title, a lot of the lists right now are not valid because civil service hasn't been renewing its test taking or its lists. Therefore, they can be provisional appointments, and should they take a test at a later point in time, can be permanently appointed to the position. So those are some things that we're identifying and working with the staff. There are a few positions we just identified this week that we think may be opportunities for some of these impacted employees to consider to shift into a new role. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I can go through more in depth, or I can talk about specific elements of the presentation if you'd want.
Okay, thanks very much, Jason.
Yep.
I see Deborah. Mike, if you want to raise your hand, you're gonna have to wave. You're kind of far away, but I'll keep an eye out to see if I can.
Thank you. I'll holler and yell.
That works. That works too. Okay, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm curious, what positions are we filling right now, Jason?
So there's some DSS positions like social welfare examiners are going to be coming up. These are a lot of the positions that validate applications for benefits. So those are ones that help meet mandated services, which are going to be important for them to process claims, those types of things. So that's a big portion of it. There are a few that I don't have off the top of my head, but that's a portion of. I know I talked to Kit maybe a week or two ago about filling some positions. Most of those are paid for too, or they're mostly paid for through reimbursements. So the challenge they're running into is a lot of it's going to be on-the-job training. For a period of time, the training that was required would have been a 3-week stay in Albany. Obviously, that ended in March. And then there were training stopped or ceased for a period of time. Now it's back to online training. But 3 weeks of in-person training in Albany to be replaced with 3 weeks of online training is not exactly desirable. Nonetheless, they have to start to be able to meet the demand and meet the mandate.
I was a social welfare examiner from 1973 to 1975.
You want to apply? 3 weeks worth of 9 to 5 Zooming sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know how they're doing it exactly, but I know it was 3 weeks straight in Albany when they did it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean those DSS slots. There's always churn. We're not aware of the kinds of hiring, people leaving and people coming in. That happens all the time. So I assume this is kind of that category, right, Jason?
It is. I mean, there's been some folks that have retired, and there's some folks that are retired from supervisor positions. So we'll be moving folks from rank and file into supervisor positions. So that's where it's opening up vacancies. So, I mean, there is some of it is due to the retirements. Nonetheless, we need to have a certain amount of positions to process claims. If we have an uptick in claims throughout the year, you're going to need people to process that as well. So,
Okay.
As long as we continue to distribute and act as a manager of that process, on behalf of the state or the feds, we're going to continue to need to fill those positions.
Martha?
Mike Lane.
Jason, we're hearing that the additional $600 on unemployment benefits may go away. And I know the furloughs before with that incentive kept the folks that were furloughed pretty much financially even. What's going to happen if that goes away with the ones we're extending the furlough on?
They'll continue to receive an unemployment benefit. They'll just won't receive the additional $600 if it's not continued. So the unemployment benefit, I believe, is a maximum of up to $400. Lisa can probably contest to that as to what the maximum benefit is, but they'll still qualify for unemployment. They just won't get the enhanced unemployment that was provided by the federal government through the stimulus package.
So they don't, their financial level will not be even then.
It won't be. They'll continue to receive their health insurance,
Right.
you know, so that's an important element of things, and we would continue to keep that intact throughout the year.
Thank you.
I would make a point that we have two levels of concern. One is about the individuals and trying to keep, be loyal to our employees and trying to treat them well and hope that, wish we didn't have to lay anybody off ever. And then there's also the concern about the function, about whether the functions of the departments, the services that are provided, are we, doing the best we can to preserve the most cost-effective services. So I appreciate kind of both levels of information and decision-making that you and the department heads have gone through, Jason. So this is, there are two parts to this.
Yeah. I would add, Martha, there's a third part, which is just balancing the financial, position of the county, which, is a difficult balance. I will say, obviously, department heads communicated this information, the recommendation to the employees, so they've had that communication with them. And that's not something that no one cares to do, so they take it very seriously. I'll also say, Lisa and I and the staff have really been working hard to try to find either help folks reach retirement if they have a milestone to reach, and there's some different things we've been doing with folks. I would venture to say that the furlough list would be a lot larger, but there's probably a good handful or more folks that has said, listen, I hit a milestone in this month. And my perspective on that is all right, let's help you get to that month. Let's help you hit, whether it's a 30 year or a 31 year or whatever the years are, to help you get to a milestone. So we work with folks to do that. The other thing is, is just, we've started to have conversations just late last week about, all right, what vacant positions are coming up. That's why I included that additional clause in the resolution of, I want to provide preference outside, above and beyond what civil service provides to individuals to be able to move into new positions if we have the availability for it. So, still we're trying to strive to minimize all the impact, and by year end, if we can submit a budget that doesn't lay off anybody or any targeted position isn't laid off, then I think it would be a success. And having an opportunity, while maybe it not be the exact title of the exact position, it would still be a good job with the county that they can keep and retain and still contribute in the retirement system and keep their health insurance and so on and so forth until other opportunities may arise. Those are the types of things that we want to try to aggressively pursue and talk to department heads. And they've been very receptive about it, saying, I understand. If I've got a titled position here and I've got someone that's on furlough, let's sit down and talk to them and see if they can do this job.
I didn't mean to ignore the financial,
No, yeah, I understand. I didn't do that.
Goes without saying. That's the elephant in the room. Deborah, did I see your hand again?
Yeah, and I was just going to bring up that third piece, which is the long-term fiscal health of the county under extraordinary circumstances, which I regard as our top priority.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here at all if that weren't a concern.
Yep.
And I think if we can make some cuts here responsibly and carefully and thoughtfully, it allows us to get into the next budget, the 2021 budget, in a slightly better position, or maybe just a less terrible position. So I think this solving this problem is going to be taking a lot of different approaches, some of this and some of that, and there's no one silver bullet to this problem we have. Are there any other questions or discussion or anything else? Anything else, Jason or Lisa?
I think Dan had a question, Martha.
Dan, did you have a question?
I do, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. What is the cost savings to the county if we take this action?
About $250,000.
Thank you.
All right.
I did update the presentation. I know Martha had asked for the categories, so I broke up that in the presentation.
Okay. And roughly that's kind of, if we were talking about on an ongoing basis, target basis, that's almost a 1% on the tax levy?
A little bit less, maybe
Okay.
3/4.
Okay. All right, are we ready to vote then on the resolution? All right, Mike Lane,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that passes unanimously. And we knew we weren't going to have the full presentation or anything at this moment. We're moving this on to the full legislature, and we'll get lots more background in about a half hour, 45 minutes. So I did see a question from Ann Corman in the chat about how long would that next expanded budget committee session go, and we haven't exactly planned. We don't have an exact plan yet for how we're going to run that discussion. I would assume, say, 2 hours at least. The last two expanded budget meetings went 2.5 to 3 hours, I think. So I would involve this committee in trying to plan that session and hope we can structure it so we can provide information that's useful for the staff to understand where the legislature is on these financial issues. So probably 2 hours, I guess 2 to 3 hours roughly. So all right, anything else for BCP? All right, then I would consider us adjourned, and we'll see you in half an hour. Same boxes.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.